This is a Jim Prey steelhead fly called the Black Demon. I'm using the recipe from The Founding Flies by Mike Valla with a little variation. I'm tying it on a number 2 straight shank, straight eye hook, black thread. The variation is that I am putting a wood duck flank tail on this fly. The recipe does not include this tail, but there is a notation along with the photograph in Mike Valla's book that Jim Prey did tie this fly with this tail. So that's how I'm going to tie it, and note that it can be tied without the tail. The body is gold, so I'm using some bicolor gold tinsel. I will tie it in with the gold towards the shank of the hook, and then when I wrap, that tinsel will flip and the gold will show, and I'm going to do tight overlapping wraps to keep that tinsel from bulging. I find that if the wraps aren't tight enough and overlapping enough, you get a gap. So I want to cover the entire shank cleanly. And I am using a number 12 tinsel, that's 3/64. Wider tinsel would probably cover more quickly, but I also find that the wider tinsel is the one that tends to create those funny gaps, like right there. And I suppose if I did more tinseling, I would get more proficient at it, as seems to be the case with all the fly tying things. Get that nice even tinsel body. And I'll go ahead and tie off there, leaving room for the wing and the hackle beard and the head. So 3 wraps over the top, 3 wraps underneath to secure that in. The recipe calls for either black polar bear or black bucktail, and so I'm going to use black bucktail. I grab the tips, fan out the butts, pull out all the short stuff in the butts, and then I'm measuring a little bit shorter, maybe about twice the length of the shank. I am going to clip that butt ends nice and straight, holding it kind of in a oval. And this is a technique from Bob Clouser when he ties his clousers, and then to hold that kind of at that angle, and then when you wrap down onto that tip of those bucktail hair, then you get a taper to the front rather than a sharp cutoff. And I'm just going to wrap back, pull out any loose ones. I might want to wrap a little bit less tight to keep them from flaring. So I go back and then bring my thread back up to the front. The beard is orange, so I'm using some orange hen hackle. I will pull back on the barbs to create that front triangle, clip that short. So then I have that little triangle to tie in with. And then I'll wrap it like I would wrap a soft hackle, pulling back on the barbs. And I don't need very many wraps because I'm going to be pulling it all downward to create a beard rather than a round or a full hackle. Pull back on those barbs to get them backwards. And maybe if I used a pair of hackle pliers, I wouldn't let go of the hackle stem or the rachis. I'll wrap up 3 wraps to catch it in, pull back on the rachis, and then I'm going to wrap up over it. And I can grab that and hopefully snap it out. Oh, it's too tough to snap, so I'll have to clip it out. And then I'm going to separate the hackle on the top and push it down on both sides. And then I will wrap back up over that to keep those down. And then just wrap over everything in front to create the head. According to Mike Valla, Jim Prey didn't believe that steelhead could not be caught with a fly, and so he tied flies specifically for that purpose. I'll put a whip finish. Originally, these flies were lacquered. On the head, I'm going to give it its contemporary twist and put some UV resin . Get the entire head covered. I'll just keep that spinning so that it doesn't pool or drip. And then shoot it with a UV light to harden the head.